In light of the recent events surrounding Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a number of people have asked me to provide some sort of commentary or view on these events, being that I'm Russian myself and being that I run a podcast, I suppose, and as a lot of you might by now understand, I am a politically aware person, so I'm happy to do that, but I will make the following disclaimer here. This is my opinion, these are my views. I do not know all of the facts. This is an extremely complex issue which has a number of elements and it dates back a long time. So I'm going to try and simplify it as much as possible. However, keep in mind, this is my point of view. I do encourage you to pay attention to these events. These are significant events that will affect all of us in one way or another. This is a historical event and we still have not grasped the full implication of the consequences of what is happening right now. So, in saying that, I believe that this is still a conflict that has its roots in the age-old conflict of Russia and the United States. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, has had business dealings in the Ukraine before. It's all around natural gases over there. It's a good business. This is not a conspiracy of any sort either. This is international business and it happens every day. There's nothing wrong with that. But essentially this relationship between Biden and Ukraine, he enjoyed the influence that he had there. He wanted to kind of move Ukraine closer to his side, to the West. And essentially he encouraged Ukraine to join NATO. Now I don't want to go into a big history lesson as to what NATO is, but essentially it's a collective of about 30 countries from what I remember. And it's a military agreement which is designed to keep a certain level of security in the North Atlantic region of the world, to conduct business, because you need peace for business to happen. You can't have business if there's constant conflicts, right? So they encourage Ukraine to do that. Now, most, if not all, member countries of NATO will have a military base on their territory. And America, being the heavy hitter in the military that it is, has a lot of influence over these things. Now, Putin didn't want NATO to have a military base in Ukraine because it's right next door to Russia. It is also an area that is of interest to Russia for that very same reason, because of the natural gases, right? Natural resources. So, Putin, just like every other hungry conqueror in history, wants land and resources. We're still fighting over that in the 21st century. It's still the same age-old problem. So if Ukraine was to join NATO, that means that there would be a military installation right next door to Russia. Putin didn't like that, so because of that, he threatened action. He threatened that there would be military consequences, so to speak. Biden, on the other hand, encouraged Ukraine to do that regardless. Ukraine, from my understanding anyway, understood that it was kind of between a rock and a hard place, but it did always want to be its own sovereign power, which is understandable. Now, in terms of this dynamic, I feel like Joe Biden has really been poking the bear. And the issue once again was the people caught in the middle, Ukraine, was nowhere near where Joe Biden is, right? So Joe Biden essentially started another war which is nowhere near his shores. So to me, this whole conflict is a political poker game between Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. And Ukraine is the prize on the line. So that's what an entire country has been reduced to, in my point of view. At the time of me recording this, there's been 137 recorded casualties, which included civilians. I can see that this death toll is likely to rise as well. Now that I've explained to you the political dynamic that is going on, let me explain the human dynamic. Russians do not want this. The average person in Russia, just normal, everyday people, do not want this. This is not a war of culture or some sort of ideology as it is trying to be presented. Ukrainians are considered to be brotherly people to Russians. I can attest to this myself. I consider Ukrainians to be brotherly to me in culture, in spirit, and as people in general. You can see this through the anti-war protests that are happening in Russia right now. Us Russians, everyday Russians, do not want this bloodshed. We do not want this war. None of us want this. None of us want the unnecessary human suffering for the sake of an old, bitter man's ego. War is a tragedy. It is a human tragedy. People die. Young people die. Civilians die unnecessarily. Just look at the footage of the soldiers. Look at the young baby faces, man. These are kids, 18, 19, 20-year-old soldiers. They haven't even been clubbing yet because they've been sitting in lockdowns for these past 2 years. They haven't got to live yet, and now they're being sent to die. This is not Russia's war. This is Putin's war. Now, I don't know who's going to hear this, but in any case, I want to point out a number of undeniable truths around Vladimir Putin and who we're dealing with here. This is a man that is built for this like no one else on the planet right now. This is a man that was a KGB agent, then he was in charge of the KGB, and then he became Russia's president. He has been in power for over 20 years. He has violently suppressed every bit of opposition that there was. People have been killed. People have been imprisoned. He has rewritten a constitution to allow himself to continue ruling. So I want you to understand something. This is a man that is not going to get voted out. This is not a man that is going to step down because somebody asked him to, because somebody threatened him to. This is a man that is not going to sit in front of any court. You're not going to get this sort of justice. This is not a man that is going to go out like that. I want you to understand this. This is the man that is going to die on his throne. A natural death or otherwise. Take it how you want. But this is a conflict that is linked to a single person. And all these world leaders, I don't know who's going to hear this, but all these world leaders threatening financial export and other sanctions, Putin is not going to miss a step. He is going to keep doing what he's doing. He doesn't give a shit. I'm sorry. These sanctions have been around for a long time. He is used to them. The only people that are affected by these sanctions are everyday Russians. Just like you and me. Just normal people, just going about their business, getting up to go to work, feed their families, raise their kids. They have no part in this. They're the people that are right now being violently suppressed on the streets of Russia for protesting against war. These are the people that are going to be affected by those sanctions. It's not going to be Vladimir Putin or anybody close to him. And this is what I want you to try and understand. This is the predicament that we're in. Russians don't want this war. Ukrainians don't want this war. Russians and Ukrainians as people are brothers and sisters. Our whole culture, dating back over 1,000 years, has originated from Kiev, which is the capital city of Ukraine, which is being bombed. We are of one people. This is not a war of ideologies or cultures. This is a war of a bitter old man. I don't know what conclusion to draw from this. I don't know the solution to this. But first and foremost, this is an understanding that I would like to create. This is an understanding that I would like us to have. The unity. Russians and Ukrainians and everyone else. We do not want this war. Regardless of what the media says. The media has its own agenda. It has propaganda to put out, and quite frankly, I'm not even going to try and expose that in any kind of way. It is what it is. But I, as an individual, as a Russian, can tell you this. I have been talking to people back in the motherland, and the sentiment is shared right across the board. This is not our war. We do not want this, and we need to stop this. I don't know how we can do this. But I think putting this out, creating this understanding, and uniting over it is a good first step. In any case, this is my view. I appreciate you for listening. I hope that we can all be at peace. I hope that we can all unite. I hope that we can all stop fighting. One person is too many. And at the time of me recording this, there has been 137. Only God knows how much further this is going to go. We need to stop this. No one else needs to die for this. Not for land, not for resources, not for political ideologies. It's enough. It's 2022. Peace.